All right, looks like we've settled out, so I'm going to get us started. Hi, everybody. This is Lars Light from the Psalm Journal. I am thrilled to be here today. Our session is called The Queens of Barolo, we are celebrating International Women's Day. The guy who waved is obviously not one of the queens, but his sister Valentina is. So I'm with Valentina and Davide Abona from Marchesi di Barolo, and we're celebrating great history that they have of strong women and strong men. Of course, we should be celebrating everything. My background, if you're wondering why I have this crown of flowers, from having lived in Italy for a few years, I know that on March 8th every year, the International Festa della Donna, International Women's Day, we always give the ladies a bouquet of mimosa tree flowers. So I have those back there to celebrate. So that's my gift to all of you. And there is the queen, the ultimate queen. Anna Bona, welcome. Mama is in the house, and everything is good. You all are looking great.
Yeah.
So you are literally in the house, and where are you sitting today by chance? Tell us about your place.
Well, we are right at home. I mean, I don't even know how to call this. It's like a little studio, a little, yes, like office place within the house, with all of the pictures of our grandfather, grandmother, all the ancestors there. So everyone keeping an eye on us so that we work properly.
Fantastic. That is great news. That is great news. So, of course, we will also want to give a shout out to your importer in the United States, Frederick Wildman. And I know that the folks who have joined us, we have about a couple of dozen people that were through the Psalm Foundation able to have samples. So we're going to be tasting later with some friends, which is great. And the rest of you, sorry, we're just going to have to enjoy our descriptions of the wines and go out and find them. And there will be a recap of this in the April-May issue of the Psalm Journal, written by yours truly. So I'm going to have to pay attention and take notes. We invite you all to join us in the chat section. You can throw your comments in there. I already see a lot of greetings from all over the country. You guys, obviously a lot of Marchesi di Barolo lovers out there. New Jersey, San Diego, St. Louis. This is fantastic. Seattle, DC, Richmond, all great stuff. So welcome everybody. And Valentina, why don't you tell us about Barolo a little bit, that very special plot of earth that you're on?
Well, we are very lucky to be here. And as unfortunately, we are not all together in Barolo today, we'll do our best to take you at least with your imagination here with us. Should I share the screen?
Please, go right ahead.
Just give me a moment. I'm never too technological.
That's okay. We're all used to it.
Okay, here we go. Okay, now you should be able to see it.
Beautiful.
Great. So this is Barolo, this tiny little village. We're actually staying right here. This is our home. It's our winery, but it's also our home. So we are in the very center of the town. A town which, as I mentioned, is very little. We're only 600 people, yet it's known all over the world because of the great wine that we are able to make here. Not just because, we are good in what we do, but because of what our terroir allows us to do. So the soil type, the microclimate, which allow this place to be unrepeatable anywhere else in the world. So our grapes are quite spoiled. And luckily, Davide takes good care of them so that we are able to make the wine that we will be tasting later. For the ones of you who are not too familiar with Barolo, we are in Piedmont, so in the northwest of Italy. The name of the region is given by the fact that we actually are surrounded by the mountains. Piedmont in Italian literally means at the foot of the mountains. In fact, we are surrounded all the way up north in the west and also a little bit in the south. So mountain separates us from the seaside, allowing this very unique climate within the region. And all this gray area is actually the Langhe area in which Barolo, which is this red sub-region, is situated. Langhe, which translates in Italian, into ancient Italian, into strips of land, because millions of years ago, all this area was actually underneath the seaside. So the sea went away around 25 million of years ago, and hills started to rise. According to when they rise, we find very different soil composition, which allow our wines to be so rich, also in terms of diversity, because there's not one hill which is identical to the other one. Even though they're very close by, we still find great differences because of their age, therefore their soil composition, because of the exposure, the altitude, and of course, the specific microclimate that characterize each one of them. So you can see in the picture here, all the mountains back in the background, which are very close by. It takes us only 1 hour and something to have some good skiing. And all these beautiful hills, rolling hills, which are one next to the other, yet again, so different, one from the other. And now my screen is blocked. I don't know if you see Barolo, but I'm not sure.
It's starting to come on. It's going a little slow, and that's okay. Where either one is a beautiful view to watch.
Let's do this, and then we'll just put it up again.
Great. Like every IT guy says, have you started over again? Shut it off and start it over again.
The night is all black without
with no light.
No light.
No light today. But this is what Barolo should be around this hour in the evening. And
why no lights today?
Perché non ci sono luci?
Per protesta contro l'Ucraina. Cioè contro l'Ucraina.
Okay, an anti-war demonstration of sorts.
For one,
Lights
for
are out
2
for-
hours in a night, we don't have any lights for us.
Actually, all the home is dark. It's only this room which is lighted up in order to see you, to allow you to see us on the screen.
We thank you for that.
Well, thank you for coming to Barolo with us. It's always a pleasure to be able to share what we do with so many enthusiastic people in the world. So as you can see, the winery is right in the center of the village, right in front of the castle which is there since centuries and which used to be the home to the last marquises of Barolo, who were also the founders of the winery in which our family vinifies nowadays. The winery. So this is daytime. We are right here now on the first floor, and just downstairs there's the cellar. The cellar, which again was founded because of the intuition of the last marquises of Barolo, specifically the last marquise, Juliet Colbert. We are here today to celebrate great women. Surely Juliet Colbert was one of them, probably the greatest one that we had in Barolo, the one that really started this winemaking tradition for the region. Until the 1700s, in fact, believe it or not, the wine made in Piedmont was actually sweet and sparkling because there was no place, and actually they had no idea on how to allow fermentation to be completed. It was only Juliet Colbert, this woman, that back in the 1800, when she moved to Barolo to follow love, because she got married to Carlo Tancredi Falletti, who was originally from here, realized the potential that the region had in terms of winemaking. So she had the cellar built in order to find a place where wine could actually complete fermentation and turn into this dry and still beautiful, long aging wine that we all know today as Barolo, just as the name of the village. And as we can't go downstairs right now, because otherwise we will lose connection, we'll show you just a very quick video. So to share with you what we have downstairs. Oops.
Your cellars are pretty extensive. I had the good fortune to be in them a couple of times last year. And they sort of approach almost as far as the castle of Barolo, correct?
Well, they are right close to it. So the idea was to have the shortest distance between the place where the wine was made and the place where then the marquises either consumed it and shared it with the other royals that used to attend their at events at their home, or since where barrels left in order to go to the different royal courts, including the one of King Carlo Alberto of Savoy. So just before Italy was unified as a country, Turin was, it then became the first capital of Italy, but before 1861, Turin was the capital of Savoy, where the royal family used to live. And the King of Savoy got curious about this wine that Marquise Juliet made in her cellars in the town of Barolo. Turin, it would be just an hour driving now. Of course, it took longer at the time, but still the distance is not that far. So Juliet Colbert sent 325 barrels from here, from the cellars, all the way up to the King's Court in Turin, one per day unless the 40 days of Lent. Because as a true Catholic, she only counted the drinking days for the king, sending him a message. You are my king, so you can ask me for something and I should do it for you, but you have someone that you have to pay respect to. So in those 40 days, not even you who are the king can drink. And since the episode that Barolo is then known as not just the king of wine, but also the wine for kings, because it was the wine that the king had for basically every day of the year.
Nice. It's good to be the king.
It is good to be the king, though. Sorry. Okay. This is where I wanted to go.
Great.
So you can see from the video, you can see even from the picture now, our cellars they look ancient. They were actually the very first ones where Barolo was made as the wine that we know nowadays. But together with some old tools like these barrels that you see here, these 5 barrels date back to the time of the marquises, so they are around 2 centuries old. We do have some more contemporary tools, smaller barrels. You can see here some tonneaux. You could see in the video some which Davide will share later, we use for our single vineyard wines, such as the Barbera. And then barrels which are newer, barrels which are smaller, some stainless steel, which we use for our white. So in these 2 centuries, the winery, of course, has been growing in terms of experience, in terms of know-how, in terms of opportunities and tools that we have nowadays, which allow us to do a cleaner and finer job to still reach that tradition in winemaking style which characterize all of our wines. So the idea is to combine history, tradition with what contemporary tools and know-how allow us nowadays. So the only one that you're missing would be my dad, who just walked in. So I'm sure later he will say hello, but we are today still a family business who's running the winery with the same dream that Marquise Juliet had back in the 1800s. You would be wondering how we arrived here. Marquise Juliet unfortunately had no children, so she left the winery to a church organization that managed it until 1929, year in which our family that was already winemaker in the little town of Barolo, learning from the Marquise herself, was able to buy the estate, so to allow this history to continue and not stop with her death after she passed it to the charity organization. So today, Davide and I are the 6th generation in the wine business, and he's the one that looks after all vineyard management.
So here we are.
So here we are.
So it's been abbastanza tempo che
long time.
It's been a long time that we already use a kind of idea in the vineyards, and the idea is to make quality. Quality is the first thing, is our first object, And in order to do that, we combine a different kind of skill of techniques that we use in our vineyards. So we combine the organic techniques with the conventional one, with the conventional one, in order to obtain quality with quality in combination of the health of our consumer. And in order to do that, we use non mi ricordo come si chiama, sto zolferame.
Organic.
Well, anyways,
Material,
organic
yeah.
ingredients.
Organic ingredients, when we can do that, and when the vintage is great, and we can use that kind of things in the vineyards. And when we must use different things, but questo come lo dite allora perché è difficile. Dobbiamo utilizzare trattamenti importanti, però in combinazione con il fatto che ci devono essere meno residui possibile.
So our idea is to, if it's necessary, to use to take advantage of the treatments, of course, keeping into consideration that we have to keep the residuals at the most minimum level.
So yeah. So that's why we write no to respect, because it's really important to know the best techniques to use in the vineyard in order to obtain the most important quality of grapes. So it depends on the vintage. It depends
on the vineyard itself. Yeah. We were talking earlier about the diversity that we have in the vineyards within the region of Barolo, even though it's a tiny one. And we will go more into that later when we will be tasting our Barolo. But there are 170 different single vineyards just within the DOCG of Barolo, which is around 5,000 acres. So small area, rich diversity. That's why it's crucial to know at best the vineyard, the single grape that we are growing in that specific vineyard, the vintage. So to use the best technique in order to respect what the expression that situation should have. In talking about expression, should we start tasting?
Absolutely. I thought you'd never ask.
Sorry, I've been speaking a lot.
That's all right. So this, I love this shot because right at the bottom of the hill, you see the yellow building. That's the winery building, and that's the hospitality center. And I want to just touch on that for a minute, because a lot of people in our audience may be used to running around Napa Valley and some of the great tasting rooms throughout California and the other states as well, even the Finger Lakes or Long Island. But if you've ever traveled in Italy, you know it's not quite the same. A lot of wineries require appointments. They will let you in, but they require an appointment. Of course, they'll be very hospitable. But Marchese di Barolo is one of the few where you can actually walk in. You should get an appointment. It's much better for everybody if you do. But if you do walk in, they do have a little wine bar set up, a nice little shop, and they have a lovely restaurant. Which does require reservations so they can prepare, but you guys are user-friendly in that many ways. And the reason I'm saying this is because I sat in the restaurant, which is right looking out those very windows onto this beautiful vineyard.
And the restaurant was the dream the mom had when she started being very active in the winery.
It's my third baby.
Yes, you were a pioneer.
We love to take care about our guests, and the people who want to come, pairing the right wine with the special dish that our chef prepares. So something special for our guests.
And the chef, back in the days when she opened, the restaurant was actually herself. So we were getting spoiled at home with all the tests that she did with the recipes, that we got to eat them first to make sure that they were, good standard, so to show them is.
I think it's important to have some special place to welcome people who come from all over in the world visiting us, and so I think it's the best welcome we can have.
I can attest to that, having been one of those lucky people from elsewhere in the world that came in to be welcomed in a very appropriate, very loving, very warm atmosphere. And it really does go a long way. You can taste the wines in a vacuum, as we say, in a tasting room or at a desk, as we often do in the trade. But to be able to have them with food in the place a few feet from where they were made is something very special. And of course, then afterwards, the loving visit by the family, all of you come around, except they never let Davide come up there. I think they're afraid of his getting dirt on the carpet. They keep him out in the vineyard.
That's true. Usually when he's in the vineyard, he would wear some special, not socks, but something that goes on the shoe so that he doesn't.
In order to not make my mom angry with me.
Right.
Always keep mama
Right.
happy.
But what is crucial in the restaurant, which is also the reason why we've been speaking quite a bit before tasting the wine, is time. Because these wines, as you said, we can't be in a vacuum when we taste them. We need to allow ourselves to be patient with them. Because even the most simple Barbera, like in this case, is a Barbera that still comes from a vineyard right in the center of the town of Barolo.
So we are talking about Barbera Pergal, which is one of the most important which is one of the most important wine that we produce, not only for the characteristic of the wine, but for the history that this wine has got itself, because it's a very important history. It's about the first really important decision that my mom and my father took when they put their first step in the winery. They decided to take away, to remove vineyard of Nebbiolo for making Barolo and to replace it with the Barbera.
Wow,
And,
people had to think they were crazy.
Yeah. So
in Barolo they were laughing, saying maybe they don't know what they are doing, they are too young.
But what they really want to show to people is that is our terroir, is our soil that makes so special our wine. So Nebbiolo from Barolo is from the area of Barolo is so great thanks to the soil, and they wanted to show that by using proprio, come si dice,
by using
usare proprio la Barbera.
By using intentionally Barbera.
The Barbera, which is a very everyday wine, is something that has got a great acidity, a very enjoyable body. But if you put that in the soil of Barolo, you can you have a picture of the soil.
Yeah.
And if you put that in that kind of soil, that is a soil that is really rich in silt, clay, and limestone, then there is a very little part of sand, but is really low. If you put the Barbera in this kind of soil, you obtain the Barbera that you are now drinking. Exactly. So a Barbera that if you taste from beginning from the nose, it's really intense. It's a Barbera that has got a kind of hint of spicy licorice, something like this, something that is really normal for a Nebbiolo, is something that is special for a Barbera. So it's a Barbera that in Italian we say it's a Barbera that baroleggia, so it's a Barbera that is like a Barolo.
Right, it Barolatizes.
Yeah,
definitely takes on Barolo characteristics, that depth, that little bit of licorice on the finish as well.
Yeah.
Also some tannins, which usually Barbera lacks on. Here you can find a nice gripiness.
Mm-hmm.
And but it also show the normal characteristic that Barbera has got. So great acidity, great color that in this kind of soil is more concentrated. So we obtain a color that is really, really deep. Is a color that it's a beautiful color, and so that is it's thanks to the soil, because the only things that we do in the cellar is to highlight the characteristic of the soil by using the right tools to show them. So after the malolactic fermentation, we divide the whole quantity of the Barbera that we obtain from Pajagallo. We divide it in 3 parts, and one of these 3 parts we put it in barriques in order to make tannins and color and all the polyphenolic substances more stable, more last longing, because or more last longing in time. So this is a Barbera that we wanted to produce in order to show the great characteristic of our terroir, and to show how interesting can be the Barbera.
So you said 1/3 in barrique,
Yeah.
and 2/3 are already in larger
In
barrels.
large barrel, yeah.
And then we reblend those together, so to allow a balance and equilibrium between the different parts, so that there is not, you know, a bottling of different Barbera, but it's all the same wine and an harmonic, homogeneous wines that is shown. Also because barrique, of course, helps in fixing polyphenols, the tannins and color, that at the same time you need to balance that out with some more neutral oat treatment, which kind of lowers down all the more sweet notes of a barrique.
Yeah, I was just going to actually say the same thing. I would never, it's Baroleja, it has Barolo-like characteristics, but I would never confuse it for a Barolo, because
course.
I think, number one, the color becomes quite obvious. Number two, the aroma, the aromatics, the bouquet is absolutely stunning. As a matter of fact, that was something Nicholas Gurgin, I think is the correct pronunciation, just chimed in there on the chat, saying it's still lush and elegant while having those nice tannins, sort of like what we like to the term an iron fist and a velvet glove. Now, Valentina, would you mind going back one slide? Because I have a question that I'm curious about, and Jay O'Leary actually asked it as well. There we go. Yep. So I'm seeing something that I don't often see in the Barolo area is you've got a cover crop.
Right here. You mean on the
vineyards? There's grass in between the vines, and every single one.
Scusami, I didn't understand. The grass in between the vineyards.
Yeah, we use this kind of techniques that now are changing in with seeds that are selected, but because when we took that picture, we used to make the grass grew naturally, not by using a selected seed.
Okay.
So
organically
is a really normal grass, but we use to let that grass grow in order to create after cutting it more sostanza organica.
Organic
substances, yeah, for our soils. So also these techniques is something that we used in the past, and now that we studied for improving our wines, for improving our grapes, of course, we change it, and from this from next harvest, because we will do it at the end of the 2022 in autumn, we will start to use selected seed in our soil in order to create more organic substances in the soil.
Okay, what is the difference between what you will be seeding and what are the indigenous grasses there?
Indigenous is something that you can't, you of course can select, and in this way you can control the release of, I don't know how I can translate
In
it,
Italiano?
azoto.
It's,
Nitrogen.
Nitrogen,
Yeah.
and so that we can control how the grass can affect the roots of the vines. So now by using selected seed, selected kind of grass, you can do a lot of improvement on the vine.
Now,
And,
does this, I'm sorry, go ahead if you want to finish.
No, please.
Does this account also, so we're seeing right now, we're looking at a Barbera vineyard. Are you doing the same thing in the Nebbiolo vineyards?
We do that in our most important vineyards.
Okay.
That you know, is something that is not so right to say, because we do it when we
trust it is proper to do.
when we trust it is important, because we see that is a lack of something in the soil, and we wanted to fix that.
Okay.
Because when you do this kind of techniques in the vineyards, when you have to do it in order to improve the quality, when you see that the soil is rich in substances, and so that you already obtain quality grapes, you don't do that. So it's something that you do when you have to fix the balance of different elements in the soil, and in order to improve the characteristic of the vines in that vineyards. So is a very, very important argument. Argument is something that is really, really specific. You can't do it by talking in general. In general, you do these kind of things because is specific.
You have to address every situation.
Yeah.
Right. And will that, I guess it will also vary on the season, whether it is a wetter year or not. When you open up, you might open up every other row.
Yeah. Also because as you said, it depends also on the weather condition. It depends on the weather condition of a vintage. So if I can do a really practical example, because now that we bought vineyards in Perno, which is in Monforte, and we took away hazelnut from a part of that vineyards, not vineyards, of that soil, sorry,
of that plot,
of that plot, in order to make the soil clean from not from hazelnut, but dalle piante selvagge, from wild grass. Something. We wanted to plant some seed in order to make the soil ready for the next vineyard, but due to the weather condition that we are facing now, we changed our mind, and we don't do that, because now there is too much hot, and there is not enough water. So it depends.
You have to be flexible.
Yeah,
of course, Mother Nature is.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to want to talk about what's going on now with the weather, but maybe after we get through the wines. Let's go back and just visit this wine again for a second. It is, as Nicholas mentioned, it's just incredibly lush and round, beautiful dark fruit. A lot of times Barbera, especially a Barbera d'Asti or Barbera d'Acqui, tend to be a little bit lighter, rounder, more drinking for every day. You can chill it. This is definitely an Alba. It reflects the soil and the terrain of Alba, and as a matter of fact of Barolo. It is an absolutely gorgeous wine. This is the 2018 vintage. Can you speak a little bit to that vintage and how it was different than, so we actually tasted these wines about a year ago, Valentina. So if you can speak a little bit to the 18 in general and how it compares to the last release, which I'm assuming would have been the 17.
Well, generally speaking, I think it's important to notice that it's a Barbera that also can age quite a bit. Usually you expect Barbera to be promptly drinking. In this case, again, because of the soil type, because of the vinification process that we have to use, because of the origin that this Barbera has, it's a Barbera that can last for much longer time.
And in particular, talking about vintage, 2018 was a vintage characterized by long and cold winter, and that is in which happens really a lot of rainfall, and so that that time we restored the water supply in our soil, and it was really important for us, especially for the 2018 vintage, because we during summer had a hot summer in which we obtain a lot of grapes in the vineyard, and especially in the 2018 vintage was really important to do the green harvest. I mean, the operation in which you are going to select the grapes that you want to keep
Yep.
in the vineyard, and the grapes that you want to remove from the vineyard, and that you will with this operation, that is an operation that consists in cutting the grapes and put the grapes
so
on
you
the grass.
of course you basically reduce the quantity, the overall quantity, in order to guarantee a better quality and concentration with those fewer grapes that remain on the vine.
Yeah, because we saw that in 2018 summer we had hot temperatures that in combination with the water supply in our soil, the result was that the vines grew really fast, and they could produce a very important quality. And if you wanted to quantity, sorry, and so if you wanted to control and to maintain a very high quality, you have to cut grapes that you will not use for
Right.
make the wine.
Right, more
So,
selection.
Mhm.
Green
is,
harvesting, do you do some green harvesting with that?
Yeah, in 2018 we did it for our Barbera, and also for some of our Nebbiolo, in particular Nebbiolo for making Barolo.
Mhm.
Now is for Barolo and for Barbera d'Alba in the area, is irrigation permitted?
No,
No.
Not at all, not even emergency.
you can't do it. You have to affidarsi.
Rely on Mother Nature and hope.
And hope.
And manage around what she offers you, yes.
But
Yeah.
I think that in Lange we've got a kind of balance, because also for the 2021 vintage we were really scared about the mancanza, the lack of water, because we had a very long time in which there were no rainfall in summer, and so that we were really scared. But thanks to the snow and to the rainfall that happened during the winter of the 2021, we saw that abbiamo perso tempo a essere spaventati.
We wasted time in being worried.
Because we obtain a very amazing harvest, because we tasted 1 week ago with other winemakers, of other winery. We did a
Blind tasting.
a blind tasting, a tasting all together about on focus on our Barolo 21 vintage, and we saw that the quality of the wine is really high.
So there is great potential, but generally speaking, I would say that with the greater diversity that we have in the region, it is true that vintages are considered as an overall, but then if you look into specific, what applies for one vineyard might not apply necessarily for the other one.
Right.
So generally speaking, it is true that there is balance, as Mother Nature always gives us balance, and there is also balance because of this diversity of the different situations. We are also lucky to have a history that goes way back, and every year our family kept aside, already our ancestors did it, a portion, a bunch of the Barolos that we used to produce that single year, with the exception of 1972, which is the only vintage that was never produced by any Barolo producer. So if you ever find a 72, it must be a fake, because we didn't make it. As a consortium, we decided that that year was not to be made. So generally speaking, we can rely on what happened then in order to improve what we're doing today, and to be sure that we don't waste too much time in being worried, but that we are kind of prompt in reacting to the different situations.
Absolutely.
Learning from each situation that Mother
Yes.
Nature handles. That's important, especially that applies a lot to a family company where you have that family memory. Your father can remember things from his grandfather and pass it on to you guys. That's important.
Right.
So one last question about the Perregal before we move on to the Spirolo. So this is 2018. I know that already just in Asti, which isn't very far, they've released the 2020. I think the 2021 is going to be coming out fairly soon as well. This is the 18. Obviously, the wine is young, as we said, very lush, beautiful structure, and can age. What do you think? You've done verticals of these, I'm assuming, you lucky dogs. What do you think is the ideal, the optimal aging potential for this Barbera?
Well, I think that maybe Davide, you will tell later what you think, but for me, I wanted to talk. I'm sorry. No, I think that for me, it depends a lot, and even more than on a Nebbiolo, it depends a lot on the vintage when it comes to this Barbera here, because we're really looking at a specific vineyard, which is more the terroir, the impacts in the expression rather than just the grape itself. We had at Christmas, we had Barbera Perregal 2012, and it was just on its peak. So it's, but I had some 2013 on the other side, just some days before, and it wasn't that appealing. It was already, it was a good Barbera, but surely with a greater maturity than the 2012. So it depends a lot on the years, but we're working more and more in the direction to allow this Barbera to age.
But what really appreciate the Barbera variety is hot temperatures. So it's not something capita caso.
Something that happens, by chance.
Yeah. But as you know, 2012 was a vintage that started really cold, with a very cold winter, cold weather, and at the end we saw that it was one of the most hot vintage that happens in Lung area, and so that is really right what Valentina said, that 2012 was a very amazing Barbera rather to the 2014. And by l'andamento climatico,
Weather patterns.
yeah, we saw that now that the temperatures are going year by year rising.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that we think that especially for the variety that will obtain the ripening later than the other, this kind of weather will be really great, because during last vintage we saw that the quality of, especially of the Barbera, and in particular in the Nebbiolo, is really high. Think about the 2010, 2011, 2015, and 2016. Now we tasted 2021. We think that it will be a great vintage, but you know, only the wine will talk about it. So we have to wait, but we are happy because we did a great effort during this to here, especially.
Oh, you guys have frozen up.
Is really important for
You're back.
us.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So why don't we go ahead and talk about the Spirolo, your Nebbiolo Langhe.
Right. So just a few words about grape Nebbiolo. I'm sure that you're all familiar with it. Generally speaking, Nebbiolo gets its name from the fact that we pick it with fogs. Nebbiolo from nebbia in Italian, nebbia is fog, but also the fact that it has this sort of whitish bloom on the skin, which makes it look a little foggy. So the peculiarity of Nebbiolo, you can see a cluster here, is that they're kind of compact grapes. They look very light in color, and that is what you actually find in the glass as well, because if you have the two wines side by side, the Barolo, the Nebbiolo, and the Barbera, you will see Barbera so dark and Nebbiolo so light. So people that are not experts, that are not familiar with Nebbiolo, might think that Nebbiolo is a lighter style of wine. Is actually the opposite, because all of the power of Nebbiolo is within its tannins, within its acidity. So the first Nebbiolo, the Sbirolo, is a Nebbiolo that comes from the greater Langhe region, which is all this this area over here. Of course, is a lot of different communes. If we have diversity just within Barolo, just imagine what you have when you go outside the borders of the sub-region. So generally speaking, many lighter soil types, a lot of sand in the vineyards. The name itself is Birolo, refers to a person, to a personality of a man that has some nice, that is quite extroverted. So really open, quite loud. This is exactly what this Nebbiolo should be. It's like the loudest Nebbiolo that we show. Usually Nebbiolo is a more shy grape that takes time before you can actually address it and become intimate with it. Coming from the very sandy soils, especially of the Greater Langhe and in Roero, which is within the appellation of the Langhe Nebbiolo area, you do have this greater approachability, this nice extroverted personality of it.
I think the term we would use for a Spirolo is probably like a rascal in English.
Something like that.
Great concentration, as Fabian points out, very fruity, nice fruit, beautiful fruit on the attack, more fruit flavor than I would have expected for a Nebbiolo, but once you get mid palate, it's definitely Nebbiolo. Super dry, you feel it on the sides of the mouth. Your enamel starts to get angry with you, any enamel that's left on your teeth. This is a 2020, so it's a pretty young Nebbiolo.
So the idea is to have a young wine that can already speak for itself. You want to say two words about the vintage 2020 vintage?
I'm the
expert
of the vintage.
Yes, it was all yours, right?
I'm joking. You know,
was that your first full vintage working?
My very first vintage that I did it alone was the 2021.
Bravo.
And you know, is when you take care directly on the vineyard and you do the operation all the year, is really it's amazing. Then explain what you did during the year, and
so we should repeat this 1 year from now and taste 2021.
Absolutely, see what he learned.
Excited. But Talking about the 2020 vintage was a vintage that for some aspect is really similar to the 2018.
Okay.
It started with a very mild winter, tranne per
With the exception of.
with the exception of February, no, sorry, January. It was a winter characterized by hot temperature and a lot of and I'm confused, sorry.
Direi in italiano se vuoi.
Allora, è stato caratterizzato da alte temperature e poche piogge.
So nice high temperatures and a lack of rainfalls.
Especially in terms of snow, and so that the awakening of the vine starts in all the Lange area at the same time, and it happened really soon than
What it was expected.
Yeah,
Early.
but so that we were scared about frozen, but luckily for us, it didn't happen during that vintage. We had spring that continued with the same weather condition of the winter, so mild temperature and very few rainfall. But during the whole month of June, weather drastically changed. Cambiato.
Sì, drastically changed.
Drastically changed. Thank you. And temperatures dropped down. So we had a very cold June, during which there were a lot of rainfall. So we had to pay a real attention by how do you say that in English? Attacchi peronosporici, funghi.
Well, by diseases like fungus.
Molds.
Yes, and so that we have to take care of the grapes. But what makes special? What makes so special? 2020 was actually this strange June, because thanks to this really rich in rainfall June, the soil
Was able to keep a lot of water.
Yeah. And in this way, we obtain a important grew of the vines, and so that we obtain a lot of grapes in the vineyards. So when I said that there were something that is similar to the 2018 was the green harvest,
which had to do, which was challenging, however, because we had no main power. No people that could work in the vineyards due to the COVID situation.
Yeah.
We had a lack of personnel. Usually we have foreigners which come from Eastern Europe that help us during the harvest. In 2020 was really challenging in this sense.
Yeah.
So it was.
We did a great effort in order to maintain the quality so high, but after this strange June, we had a really normal summer with a temperature that were not so hot. We had the water thanks to the rainfall that happens during June, and so that we fully reach the ripening of our grapes, so that we can say that the 2020 was a vintage, especially for again Barbera and Nebbiolo, very important vintage, something that especially talking about Nebbiolo for making Barolo, it could be another great vintage
that can last for longer. Right now you have some, even though it's the most loudly speaking Nebbiolo, you can tell that it's still tight. It has a very precise tannin, is revealing itself, but not with the how to say easiness that you would expect maybe from a Langhe Nebbiolo.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Something that we really see during the 2020 vintage was that, of course, the vintage is important. The weather condition for a vintage is really important. But what is really more important is the attention that you do in that you make in the vineyards, because the skill that we use for maintaining the quality are really important now that we've got this kind of vintage.
Okay, Davide, Valentina, I'm sorry, I'm keeping an eye on the time here. Let's move on and talk
Yes,
about the
sorry.
Barolo del Comune. That's okay.
Then, okay.
This is
So
great
we just
information.
shrink the picture, we just shrink the zoom from the greater Langhe area. We will go more focus into the region of Barolo, and even more specifically within just little town of Barolo, the little commune, which is this one here, very central into the winemaking area. If generally speaking, we can divide Barolo into two, we have a northern, like northwest part of Barolo, where you have sandier soils, as all this area is younger, while in the southeast you have more rocky vineyards, more compact and stony vineyards, as these are older and they've been for more time exposed to rainfalls, snows that pushed the soil that is on top of the sand that is on top of vineyards far away. So more perfumed, expressive expressions of Barolo up north, more rich, concentrated, last-longing expressions of Barolo in the southeast. Barolo, as we said, is central. You could see it in that picture, was right in the center of the, here in the center of the map. This is how the town of Barolo looks. Is not just central in terms of, geography, but also in terms of altitude. We are lower than other villages. The name itself, Barolo, comes from Basrol, which translates into low rise place in our town. So these hills that surround us are kind of protecting us from the excessive winds and excessive climate conditions. So we mentioned earlier, Barolo area, 5,000 acres, 2,000 hectares more or less, 170 different single vineyards. In the town of Barolo, where we benefit from this unique climate given by the lower position and the fact that two soil types, so compact stony, so older vineyards and younger ones kind of cross one with the other, is where we have the greatest diversity. It's 11, the vineyards, they are 11, the vineyards that we use for making this Barolo here, and they're all within the town of Barolo. So walking distance one from the other, yet so different to allow a eventually a single expression of each one of them. With this wine, we wanted to go beyond the concept of the single vineyard. We wanted to show what our tradition is as winemakers from Piedmont to blend our Nebbiolos from the different locations. So to show what is the overall region and complexity that the region can reach, but also but also the winemaking style of the house. So with the single vineyards, we can show the vineyard. With the blends, we show ourselves through the wine. So each vineyard is vinified alone, that then later reblended together, so to show what our interpretation of Barolo is. So the Barolo del Comune di Barolo, it's a blend of, generally speaking, 11, but specifically we wanted to show you the 3, which are probably the most iconic vineyards for Barolo, given that situation which I was mentioning, younger, older vineyards. And of course, this has been, I'm sorry. When you need to be quick, technology does not help you. So 3 vineyards, which are very close by one to the other. You can see it from here, yet so different in terms of soil type. Coste di Rose, super sandy, as you can see, very loose. Canubi, which is just a little bit more compact stony, has definitely more silt, more clay. and Sarmassa, which is the most rocky one of the three. So these are only three. Imagine 11 of these. Vinified alone and then reblended. So this is the most iconic expression of Barolo for what our family's history is.
Right.
From the only town of Barolo, but still a blend of the many situations that we can find even within our little village.
Nice. It's old school style of Brunello production. I love it. On your label under the vintages, it says Composizione Parcellare, which is very cool. Everything always sounds better in Italian, but it's a composition of different parcels, which really says it all. It's great.
Just as I was saying, every vineyard is vinified alone. So every parcel is vinified alone and then is recomposed together. So to show what we see every day when we look out of the window, all the different hills, the different exposures, the different soil types synthesized in one wine.
Cool. And Davide, do you want to give us a little brief synopsis of the 2016?
Really quickly. 2016 was a vintage characterized by a mild winter, during which there were few rainfall, something similar to the weather condition that happened during these last vintages. But what makes so great the vintage of 2016 was the rainfall, especially in terms of snowfall of the 2015 winter. So during the winter of 2015, we obtained so much water that our soil were really rich, and so that the water supply that we obtained was enough to make the vines to not suffer water sofferenza idrica.
Yeah,
Hydric stress.
Yeah, hydric stress. Not only for the 2015, but also for the 2016. In fact, thanks to the few rainfall of the 2016 winter, we had a great vintage that ended with a very dynamic summer, in which hot temperature of the day were alternate.
Were balanced, were alternated by the cooler temperatures in the night.
So we fully reached the ripening of this amazing vintage. But the difference between 2016 and 2015 is that I suggest you should taste 2016 now, because now it's really the moment in which you can really enjoy this wine
and understand the vintage.
With this con questa affermazione.
With this sentence.
With this sentence, I don't want to say that 2016 can't age. But what I really see is that now is amazing. So there are vintages that you can taste after many years, and it's really also funny. It's
probably better to taste after some time, because you don't have that epiphany when you taste them if they're too young. 2016 is a vintage that allows you to understand it already now, and after it will be a good vintage. Right now you can really understand it intimately, if I'm getting it right.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely beautiful. It's showing maturity and ripeness. It's showing some of that little bit of tobacco, plum and cherry fruit, great acidity, good tannins, but really a pleasure to drink.
Well, Barolo is a wine that can never, in my opinion, border you, because right now you feel all these notes. So the more it ages, the more these will develop and grow together with you. They will just become finer, eventually sweeter. But I mean, it will continue to grow forever, just like a person that aging becomes wiser and deeper in their knowledge, in what they share. So always go ahead when you have a Barolo in front of you. It will just be, a different but a unique experience if you taste it young, if you taste it
like-
later.
It's like you never step in the same river twice. You never taste
Right.
the same Barolo twice.
Right.
And you know what I think is really amazing of the wine world is that all the vintage are really different one from the other. Wine is a very natural product, and so that as I said, is different. And you can some vintage you have to trattare, to treat them, to trap them in a way different from another one. So if you want to last the 2015 now in your cellar,
If you want to keep in the cellar.
if you want to keep the 2015 in your cellar, and you will enjoy it in the future, and it will be amazing. But what I wanted to say with the 16 is that is amazing now,
Right
and
now.
I
is.
suggest you have to
At
taste it.
least
Yeah.
give it a chance.
Yeah, it's a beautiful treat. So on that note, we've got to wrap it up, but I want to thank you guys very much. I want to remind everybody that this has been recorded. The recording is on somjournal.com website, as well as our Facebook platform. This has been on Facebook Live, and the recap will be in the April-May issue of the Somm Journal. If you are not already getting it, drop me a line at lars@somjournal.com. But Davide, Valentina, if Anna is still there, I don't know
Yes, I
if
will.
Papa Ernesto is around, but it has been a
Yes.
wonderful pleasure. Thank you for welcoming us all into your home
Thank you.
and sharing these gorgeous wines with you. And thank
Thank
you
you.
to our
It was,
friend Frederick Wildman as well.
It is always an honor to be together, especially now that we can so travel with all that, liberty, or in such a relaxing way. It is
Yeah.
beautiful to be at least here all together. Mom
I
and
did-
dad
I
are
did-
coming to say bye-bye.
Excellent. I did enjoy very much seeing you in person last year, I must say. That was a treat, but this is always a good substitute in between.
It makes it, I don't know, it shortens distances, but then of course,
Yes.
still we have to meet in person and touch each other.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Stanno andando
All
via.
right. This is Mama Anna. Thank you very much.
Salve.
Grazie, Papa Ernesto. Wonderful to see you both again. Thank you. Compliments on the
Ciao.
next generation.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Cheers.
All
Ciao,
right.
ciao,
Buona
grazie.
festa della donna.
Grazie.
Tutte le cose le ho ricordato io.
Thank you all.
Ciao,
Bye.
ciao.
Good day all. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.